Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market, experience a world of choice. And Automotive Art Cayman, your car, our passion. And by Dorman Day, celebrating 10 years of opening doors to brighter futures. Visit dormanday.ky.
And now,
Radio Cayman presents
The Buzz, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local environment. This is where we address the topics that matter. Here's your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning, Cayman. Happy Tuesday, everybody out there. It is the final long week before the week of Christmas hits, so I know it's going to be a busy week for everybody. Stay safe on the roads, be patient with everyone, and just focus on your priorities. Get what you need to get done and extend an extra little smile, because you never know who needs it today. This morning on The Buzz, I'm very excited to be welcoming our Minister for Finance and Economic Development and Minister for Education and Training, the Honourable Rolston Anglin. Good morning, Mr. Anglin.
Morning, and thank you for having me. It's always good to be on any of these shows. I think we were saying a little earlier how, whilst I know myself well and know that I wouldn't make a good classroom teacher, I think what people have appreciated about this budget cycle, and I've heard consistent feedback, is it peeled back the window as to how we get to a budget and the process that unfolded and all of the information that came out in Finance Committee. I thought it was a very good teaching tool, and it was so refreshing to hear so many people, just average person on the street, either send me a message, bump into me, people I didn't know, saying that they were very thankful because they thought this process really brought things together and they could follow it so much easier.
What was different about this process? By the way, I threw my whole intro out the door just now. That's okay. So even before you answer that, I'm going to tell people we are here to talk about the budget, right? It was just approved end of November in Parliament, and we're talking about really what this budget means for your cost of living, public services, and the country's long-term financial health. Now, this budget does come after a pre-election economic and financial update earlier this year. We're going to be touching on that. And that warned of some operating deficits and failing cash reserves. And after the previous 2024-2025 budget that was focused on post-COVID recovery and easing the cost of living. So today, we're going to be asking you, does this budget genuinely fix those problems? And does it start to close what the Premier has called a, quote, social deficit in housing, healthcare, and opportunity? So that's all the things we're talking about. You're going to walk us through some of the numbers, the new fees, the spending priorities, some things I might have gotten wrong in my notes, and to take some calls later on in the show. So you started talking about the process being new or different this time.
So one of the things that I did was I ensured that, firstly, out of the gate, ministers understood they answered their questions, not public servants. That was a habit that had creeped in, unfortunately, into our system, and it does not belong in our system. Finance, here's how our system is supposed to be organized. A budget is the biggest political statement of a government. The budget is the ultimate test as to whether you have a government. Can you pass a budget?
Right.
So you have to have the numbers to pass a budget, and that is, as I said, you tick that box, you have a strong government because you can produce a budget and now you can vote and have the capacity to legally spend. That is why it's called an appropriation bill. It's a law. Mm-hmm. The budget is a law. This is how we legally can go out and spend money on behalf of the people, as in the name of the Cayman Islands government. So that was number one. I made it very, very clear we're returning to what Finance Committee is supposed to be. Finance Committee is the most powerful political committee, and there's very little to no room for public officers to be there other than to give their ministers technical advice and answers to questions that may be very technical in nature. Right? As a minister, you're supposed to know your budget. Mm-hmm. You're coming to represent and defend your budget. And so you're supposed to know the budget inside and out. On the flip side, The Auditor General then audits the financial statements of government and produces reports. That is where you have more public servant interface, where administratively they answer those administrative questions as to what has happened during the year in those spendings, right? Not that ministers are exempt from answering those questions, because they're not for political and policy decisions they've made, but for those administrative aspects to get you to the point of, here's the annual report of CIG, and now let's ask questions around the findings of the Auditor General in the Public Accounts Committee. So budget creates the authority to spend. We have a committee that we devolve into a special committee, because all bills go to a committee. Because as you've covered Parliament, you go into committee before the third reading. Well, for a budget, for an appropriation act, you go into committee. It's just called a very special committee called the Finance Committee. That committee is a standing committee in our standing orders, and that committee can also be called to hear and appropriate or change appropriations during the course of a budget as well. So that was number one. The second thing that we did was, instead of going from grandiose political statements and speeches during the contribution on the budget debate, where the public may or may not have listened to you speak for an hour to 2 hours, and remembered or not remembered what you said for an hour to 2 hours, and that could have been, let's just say, a particular minister may have spoke on day one of the budget debate. Well, by the time you got to Finance Committee, that probably would have been 3 to 4 days later. Who would have remembered what that minister said? Who in the public would have remembered what that minister said when he then appeared before the committee to actually go through the details of his budget, his or her budget? And so what I did was, I asked each minister to have a statement before starting the questioning. That was something, interestingly, that whilst it was not necessarily systemized, but when I was previously elected, that was pretty much a standard practice for a number of ministers. What I think it should be is, it should be a practice across the board. I think that should be how you always kick off Finance Committee, whether it's after an appropriation bill, or even next year we may be going to Parliament for a Section 12 or what have you. Suppose an emergency happens and we have to go back and call Finance Committee. Again, every time we call Finance Committee, before we actually delve into questioning, there should be a statement from the relevant minister as to what it is that the committee is considering. What are we considering and why? What I did in the first two finance committees that we held, because we had one in July and we had one in September of this year, because we were coming out of an election and because we were in the throes of actually creating this 26-27 budget, I pretty much took on the responsibility and opened each finance committee with a detailed statement. Going forward, my expectation will be, yes, I'll have preliminary opening comments of the chair of finance committee, but if I'm appropriating, if the committee is expected to appropriate funding to the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Social Development, well, that minister ought to be telling the committee what it is that his or her ministry is going to be doing. Why are we here, and what are we going to be doing with that funding?
That seems very basic to me. It seems logical that process should happen.
Yes. And so I think that's what a lot of the public saw and felt. The other thing we did was, each minister also went through their appropriations. And so the public will hear us get up, and of course I brought all the details with me, right? And so they will hear us get up and say PAH 1. But what is PAH 1? And yes, I'll read it out. But what each minister did was, they went through all of their output groups and actually gave an explanation for the variance and gave that to members of the committee, including obviously the opposition. And that too helped and greatly assisted members in their questioning.
Right.
So I think it was the most open and transparent process that the country has seen, and I think that really drove for real engagement and people making the comment, look, we really enjoyed Finance Committee because we could really follow along and be engaged. And after all, that's what our democracy should be about. It's not just about the 19 of us. Yes, the 19 of us are the close. Look, it's a representational democracy, so we ought to be the closest to it. We're the ones sent by our people, by our voters.
Absolutely.
But when the process unfolds in a way that the public can genuinely follow and participate, I think that's when our democracy truly comes alive.
The questioning period the ministers or other members of parliament would have, was that like a long enough questioning period when the ministers were going line by line of what the appropriations were? Was it a long enough period? Was it different from the past when people could question, okay, I have further questions about this appropriation?
There was no further questions about any appropriation in this Finance Committee. The one criticism that I picked up was that I gave too much leeway. Now, I'll take that on, right? Because I honestly and truly believe that Finance Committee by nature is an elongated process. I don't believe Finance Committee in a day or two does justice to our system and how our system is designed. And so I gave a lot of latitude and a lot of leeway. What I also did was, which helped a lot of members as well, as I said to them, look, instead of the traditional going by output group, so you had to wait for your questions before it came up to a specific item, I allowed members to just simply ask all of their questions, and that way a particular member's train of thought as it related to a ministry was much more structured.
Yeah.
Because then you could ask from policy advice all the way down to provision of cadastral, surveying, land registration, stamp duty, assessment, valuations, and geographic services, which was PAH 28, for example. So because members were able to ask their questions right across a ministry, I think that also helped. And what I did was, as the process unfolded, I then got members to agree, okay, are you finished with? And I would then batch a number of output groups. We vote on those and approve those as part of the schedule to the bill, and then we continued on, and we did that until we exhausted all the questions from all members.
Okay, we're going to get into some of the big numbers that we need to know about with this budget. We've got to take a quick commercial break first, and then we'll get right back to that.
Perfect.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series. Brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
While the Cayman Islands has long been a maritime abode, it was under Commissioner Alan Cardinal that the pastime of yachting or sailing would come to pass. Commissioner Cardinal started his post in the Cayman Islands on February 14, 1934. In January 1935, the first Cayman Islands Regatta was held in Georgetown, with boats participating from Cayman Brac. Commissioner Cardinal had foreseen that the islands were capable of showcasing their excellent shipbuilding and sailing talents in organized competition, as a means to attract international investors with the assistance of one Edmund S. Parsons and Lieutenant Colonel B.P. Dobson. Commissioner Cardinal would form the Cayman Islands Yacht Club. In a sign of genius, the Yacht Club was also used to reform the local Boy Scouts, but as Sea Scouts serving in Georgetown and West Bay. By 1937, the Cayman Islands Yacht Club boasted 134 members, with 150 Boy Scouts and Cubs.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community, a traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman's historical vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Yo, you finished your Christmas shopping yet?
Not even close enough. But I passed by Automotive Art last weekend. Bro, that place is a man's playground.
Facts. I went in for tires and ended up dreaming about new rims. They say containers keep coming in too. Fresh wheels landing every week, bro.
True. And you hear they stocking those wet sounds marine stereos, small to full systems. Imagine that on the boat next Sunday.
Boy, plus fizzle racing parts for the wave runners. I gonna finally outrun yours.
This Christmas, head to Automotive Art for the gifts men really want. Rims, tires, batteries, performance parts, and the island's newest marine audio systems. And for the big gift, get 15% off 14-foot boats, complete with trailer, bimini top, and engine. Only $10,595 out the door. See? Christmas song. Automotive Art, Shedden Road.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
We have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center.
Specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
This holiday season, let Kirk Market do the roasting so you can do the hosting. Visit in-store or shop online and order your traditional family feast, complete with classic roasted turkey and ham, all the tasty sides and trimmings. Let the chefs at Kirk Market be your holiday helpers so you can spend less time in the kitchen. Order online at kirkmarket.ky or visit in-store today. And don't forget to visit the florist at Kirk Market to find the perfect centerpiece for your table. There's no place like Kirk Market for the holidays.
Ho, ho, ho! Still searching for the perfect gift or that comfy couch to curl up on this holiday season? Beacon Furniture at Plaza Venetia, North Sound Road near China Village is your one-stop holiday happiness shop. From gorgeous living and dining rooms to bedroom sets, outdoor furniture, candles, and a wide selection of home accessories, we've got something for everyone on your list. Stop by our showroom, meet our cheerful elves, friendly staff, and let us make your holiday shopping fast, fun, and oh so festive. Call 943-2500 today and let Beacon Furniture help you slay this holiday season.
Rocky's Diamond is making Christmas shopping a whole lot easier. Check out their selection of watches, earrings, and more on Facebook and Instagram, and shop online at rockysdiamonds.com. Save 20% off with coupon code XMAS25, and they'll deliver right to your door. Or stop by the Rocky's Diamond showroom at 28 North Church Street, Waterfront Center. Don't wait till the last minute. These deals just won't last. Rocky's Diamond Christmas Sale at rockysdiamonds.com. Proceeds from the Rocky's Diamond Christmas Sale will also go to support the Spread the Word International Ministries campaign to support kids in Jamaica this Christmas season.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz, and we are here to unpack the 2026-2027 budget. And in studio with me, I have Minister for Finance and Economic Development, the Honorable Rolston Anglin. And he was giving us an introductory process to how Parliament went with the budget, how the Finance Committee ran with the budget. And we're going to get into some of the big picture numbers right now, some big picture framing, as I like to call it. So for our listeners who haven't read any of the budget documents, can you briefly explain what this approved 2026-2027 budget is trying to achieve?
Well, as a government, we looked on and we said, what do we perceive as social deficits and gaps, and how do we fill those? We're doubling ECAP funding, Early Childhood Assistance Programming funding. We are, for the first time in a long time in Cayman's history, honestly budgeting what is called NGS 55, contained within the Ministry of Health, and HEA 2 that are contained in the Ministries of Health. Those are two areas that we have historically underfunded. And the public may ask, well, why underfunded? Well, part of the reason for underfunding it is that people always knew, governments always knew, that's an easy area to go back and have a supplementary appropriation for. So what's a supplementary appropriation? Supplementary appropriation is when the government goes back to Finance Committee and says, well, we appropriated $18 million, but the item really is going to cost the country $50 million. How are you going to make up that gap? You go back and do what is called a Section 12. So all the public has to do is go to the Public Management and Finance Act, and in Section 12, that describes how a government appropriates to itself additional funding outside what was approved in the original appropriation bill. And so HEA 2 is medical care for indigents. Easy one, right? Mm-hmm. Because the fact is, if you don't fund that adequately and you then go back for a Section 12, the committee is going to give you the money. Because we're not, let me put it bluntly, we're not going to send people home, people who can't afford it, we're not going to send them home to die. We are going to take care of our medically indigent population, right? NGS 55 is tertiary medical care at various local and overseas institutions. So that is all of the overseas and local referrals. So patients at at the Cayman Islands Hospital, but they've had a massive heart attack. Well, the institution locally that can help them get them back to health is going to be Health City. And so that's how we fund anyone who doesn't have the insurance cover to be able to go to Health City. And so those numbers, what we did was we've implemented a range of policies that we believe are going to greatly assist in another huge area that we've seen in deficit, which is our entire health insurance industry.
Right.
And so I've publicly said that we're going to have a bipartisan committee that is going to holistically look at health insurance in the Cayman Islands. We believe that the outcome of that work is going to right-size the industry. And so what we've done is, whereas in the past, a lot of times that was funded around 20%. So in other words, in 2025 budget, that was appropriated at $18 million. It wound up at $53 million. You do the math.
Mm-hmm.
That's $35 million. That right off the bat, your projected surplus would have been off.
Right.
Because remember now, if I brought a budget with any of these recurrent expenditure items artificially too low, that just meant that what I had as a projected surplus was artificially too high.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a company, you have a small business, you project to make $1 million next year in revenue, but you know that you have a contractual commitment for $400,000, but you only put in your internal budget $200,000. You know whatever your bottom line projection is $200,000 off. You don't ever really know what NGS 55 and HEA 2, for example, are going to cost for the year, but historic trends tell you where it's going to be. We funded that at 83, I think it's 83% this year. We funded HEA2 at 85%. The reason is we are convinced that a combination of measures, which includes our review and our wholesale look at what the health insurance industry needs to look like for it to be sustainable for the Cayman Islands, is going to allow us to operate at those levels, which we believe is the more accurate levels that government should be funding. There's an old adage, and I'm sure you yourself and the vast majority of our listeners will know. We have a health insurance law act that says once you're an adult and working, you're mandatorily supposed to have health insurance cover. Companies are very happy to provide you a policy when you're young and healthy. When you've exceeded your lifetime limit, when you get a terminal illness, when you reach the age of retirement, what happens?
They're not so eager to insure you, or the cost of insurance skyrockets.
And therefore you wind up at government's doorstep funded by one of these two outputs, right? Output groups. And so I don't believe we can kick that can down the road anymore.
Understood. So previously it was underfunded, because as you said, historically, you could see that the budget actually called for more when it came to those two sections there.
Not that the budget called for more.
Okay.
The expenditure experience meant you should have budgeted more, but in the budget itself, it was underfunded.
Gotcha. And so this time you have adequately funded it in the hopes of what you've seen historically happen in the past. Hopefully that little bit of cushion so it wouldn't be underfunded again.
Right.
Okay. We got to go to the 8 a.m. news right now. Coming quick on the 8 a.m. news. When we come back, I mean, there's so much more. We're just starting to scratch the surface here as we unpack the 2026-2027 budget with Minister Rolston Anglin.
Thank you, Kathy. And studio time by Foster's is a minute after 8.
Grab a cart and win! It's the 30K Jolly Grocery Giveaway at Foster's. This Christmas, we're spreading some holly jolly cheer by filling one lucky shopper's cart with $10,000 worth of groceries. Just purchase any 2 specially marked products from now until December 24th for a chance to win your share of $30,000 worth of groceries. Go to fosters.ky/jolly for more info. Thanks to Chloralin and Sueno, Pinolin, Lysol, Paradise Coffee, Wheat Rose, Tortuga, and Boxed. Have a holly jolly Christmas at Foster's.
Yesterday,
today,
always and forever.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Karsley Fuller. Cabinet greenlights a series of budget shifts as well as an extra $500,000 for the Ministry of Planning, Lands, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure. Up first, supplemental funding for this year's NICE program, which gives unemployed Caymanians short-term employment in the lead up to the holidays and supports the quote essential maintenance of public spaces. Minister responsible, the Honorable J.E. Banks.
And Cabinet has approved the $350,000 in supplementary funding. This will be achieved by reducing PH 28 cadastral surveying and planning and resource management by $350 and increasing PH 10 management of government properties by the same amount. The adjustment is required immediately due to the timing of the program and the operations and need to have the resources in place now.
This year's program ran between the 1st and the 12th. The next improvement by Cabinet was the reallocation of funds to repair and remediate the Stacey Watler Pavilion.
On the 10th of December 2025, Cabinet approved the reappropriation of the funds as follows: a decrease of $300,000 from TP76 Assistant for Infrastructure Development and a corresponding increase of $300,000 in NGS 84, the Cayman Islands Agriculture Society, for the purpose of the funding and urgent repairs and remediation to the Stacey Watler Pavilion.
Mr. Ebanks told MPs in Parliament the pavilion is a, quote, key national facility that supports the agricultural community events and food security initiatives. He says the structural environmental issues must be addressed, quote, immediately to ensure safety and maintain the pavilion's ability to host major events like February's upcoming agriculture show. Cabinet also approved the creation of a new operational expenditure, avian influenza pilot culling program, in the amount of $500,000.
This funding supports the urgent disease control measures, including a pilot culling program for feral chickens and the continued enforcement of movement of restrictions around the affected area. Mr. Speaker, the action follows the confirmation of the avian influenza on the local farm and is designed to reduce the risk of the spread of to other holdings and protect the public health and safeguard of domestic poultry and wider food security interests.
Minister Ebanks says the pilot culling program will focus on feral chickens within the 500-meter zone of the affected area, alongside, quote, the target surveillance and testing of selected farms. And a woman heads to Grand Court to re-enter pleas to multiple charges of forgery and obtaining property by deception, as well as possession of criminal property. Radio Cayman's Jevy Ebanks has more on the case against Erilyn Jane Thompson.
Erilyn Jane Thompson has now pleaded guilty to all counts except for one, which the court has ruled was not relevant to the case. Prosecutors told the court that between April 2022 and January 2023, Ms. Thompson forged 17 prescriptions purporting to be signed by a local doctor and knowingly presenting 12 false prescriptions for oxycodone. It was further alleged that she obtained the drugs by deception from Foster's Food Fair Pharmacy between April and December 2022 and from the West Bay Pharmacy between June 2022 and January 2023. Ms. Thompson also faces a charge under the Proceeds of Crime Act after being found in possession of KY $1,255 in cash on the 2nd of March 2024, alleged to be criminal property. She remains on bail till the new year, but the court has ordered a social inquiry report and victim impact report to assist in sentencing. Her sentencing is scheduled for March 2026, and she remains on bail till then. Jevy Ebanks, Radio Cayman News.
Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which takes us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller.
BBC News with Emily Thomas. The authorities in India say one of the gunmen who killed 15 people at a Jewish celebration on Bondi Beach was an Indian citizen. Police in the southern state of Telangana say Sajid Akram was originally from Hyderabad and left for Australia 27 years ago. The M23 rebel group that's fighting government forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo says it's agreed to withdraw from the city of Uvira at the request of the United States. The militia had seized the city last week. The World Food Programme says more than 17 million people in Afghanistan are facing acute hunger this winter. The WFP said teams were seeing families skipping meals for days on end. BBC News.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman with the latest up-to-date, accurate news and information. For your convenience, the headline news will be repeated on our sister station, Breeze 105.3 FM, weekdays at 8:30 a.m. Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or download the Radio Cayman app in the App Store or log on to www.radiocayman.gov.ky and stay connected to what's happening in the community. Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
We're here, redefining healthcare in the Caribbean and beyond with advanced technology, expertise, and passion. From critical emergencies to cutting-edge diagnostics and life-saving pediatric heart surgeries, we're here. We're innovators, creators, and caregivers, advancing medicine, developing Caymanian talent, and nurturing our community. Now and tomorrow, we're here, shaping the future of healthcare. Health City Cayman Islands, where healing begins.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by CG Britcade, where people come first.
Good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 78 degrees. Relative humidity is 87%. The barometric pressure 29.94 inches and rising. The winds are calm. Overnight low was 75. Synopsis indicate isolated showers expected across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours as a cold front is expected to become stationary over western Cuba. In addition, moderate to locally fresh winds are expected as a ridge of high pressure builds behind the front across the southeastern United States and increases the pressure gradient across the Cayman area. Satellite imagery shows scattered to numerous clouds across the western Caribbean with isolated thunderstorms south of Grand Cayman. Now the forecast for the Cayman Islands for today calling for partly cloudy skies, becoming cloudy at times, with a 40% chance of showers. Temperatures will rise near the mid-80s with a heat index of 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Your winds will be northeasterly 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Tonight, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy at times with a 30% chance of showers and temperatures falling near the mid to upper 70s tonight. Your winds will be northeasterly 10 to 15 knots. Seas slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet as well. Today's high tide will occur this morning at 8:33, low tide this afternoon at 2:37, and a high tide again tonight at 7:18. The sun will set this evening at 5:49 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:53. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Friday morning.
On Angie, how does it feel to have broken the bull riding world record?
Sore, Sean. That bull was angry.
Angie, I think that bull is headed towards your red convertible.
I broke the world record and he broke my car. Oh well, at least I've got CG Comprehensive Motor to cover this.
Get covered for collision, damage, and more. CG Britcade. Good like that. All benefits are subject to policy provisions, including eligibility at the time of service.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by CG Britcade, where people come first.
Ho, ho, ho! Santa here! I can't wait to see you all at my grotto at Bayshore Mall. I'll be there with my friends from Kirk Freeport from December 19th until Christmas Eve. Visit kirkfreeport.com to see my daily schedule. I'll have a special toy and sweet treats for every boy and girl. So stop by to tell me what you want this Christmas, all while enjoying music and entertainment for the entire family. See you soon at Bayshore Mall. Merry Christmas from Santa and everyone at Kirk Freeport. Ho, ho, ho!
Radio Cayman News.
Bill is therefore passed.
The immigration reform bill is passed in Parliament.
I am aware of the concern that recent robbery incidents have caused within the community.
Police are being forced to identify shadows instead of faces.
Every moment counts. Do not delay in reporting suspicious activity.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
7 days a week.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
Top of the morning, let's check in and see how the traffic is shaping up this morning. Coming from the east further up on Shamrock Road and Rex Creighton Boulevard, flowing at a moderate pace. Further down, different story as traffic is steadier. And steady traffic on the Linford Pearson Highway. Expect some delays. Steady traffic coming off of the Linford Pearson Highway on Agnes Way. As we look to Crew Road, traffic is moving steadily and coming off of Bobby Thompson Way, moderate flow of traffic. Steady traffic coming off of the Esterly Tibbetts Highway and continuing on to North Sound Road, Industrial Park area, moving at a moderate pace. And as we look to the West Bay Road area in front of the Ritz, traffic is moderate in both directions. No issues coming from the West Bay four-way stop, flowing nicely. And Edward Street, moderate flow of traffic. Into Georgetown on Shedden Road, looking pretty good. Out of Georgetown on Shedden Road, moving at a moderate pace. Remember, mind your speed, signal early, and check your distance between the car in front of you. That's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes past 12. We'll give you another look at traffic.
Did you know ordering your favorite sandwich from Subway just got easier? Yeah, picture this. No more waiting in line. No more fussing with cash. Just a delicious taste of Subway at your fingertips. With our new app, ordering your go-to sub is as easy as a few taps on your phone. Plus, receive exclusive deals and earn loyalty points with every purchase made on the app. Download the new Subway app today and get ready to ditch the lines and drive straight into your flavor. Visit the App Store or Google Play Store on your mobile phone and search for Subway Cayman Islands. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Oh, welcome back to The Buzz. I didn't know we were coming back that fast. I don't know why. The time flew by in that sense for the 8 a.m. news. It flew by. So you almost caught us talking off mic there for a second. It's all good. It's all good. I was just about to admit whether or not I was a procrastinator or not. So that'll be an off-air discussion with the minister. But we are here unpacking the 2026-2027 budget. And I have in studio with me the Minister for Finance and Economic Development and also Minister for Education and Training, the Honourable Rolston Anglin. Okay, so you gave us you were briefly explaining what this budget is trying to achieve, and you gave a couple of examples there.
I gave a few examples, but in broad terms, right, we're looking for strong education and immigration systems because those are critically important to how we actually build foundational pieces. Foundational pieces are people. Every society is built on the success of its people, right? You have to have a society where education and public education is what I like to call the great social equalizer. I'm sitting here because of that.
Yeah.
I came from a poor family. I wear that as a badge of honor, right? I think a lot of times younger people who don't know you, they look on and say, oh, he's elected, so he must have come from privilege. He must be one of them money people from one of those money families, right? So I wear that with a great badge of honor. And so we have to ensure we have a sustainable physical development, affordable housing. Again, all supported and underpinned this budget. We have to ensure that our infrastructure is resilient, that we protect nature. Critically important. Nature is one of our greatest assets. But we have to also have a resilient and diversified economy. And I think this budget, as we continue to build out various areas of financial services and strengthening our tourism product and working very hard to ensure that our development product is one that is sustainable, is critically important, again, to a small island country like ours. We have to have a healthy and empowered population. Again, we just delve into a few examples of what we're doing on the health side.
Yes.
To ensure that we prioritize the health of our country. But then we also have to have a cohesive society where we preserve our culture and heritage, where we promote it, where it doesn't get lost, where it doesn't get drowned out. And let's be honest, Kathy, you've been in Cayman for quite a few years.
I have, yes.
And I'm sure in those quite a few years, you've seen some significant shifts around what the average society looks like out there and the things that we've lost, quote unquote, lost along the way. And a lot of it isn't lost, we just don't pass it on. And those are two different things.
Yeah.
We don't highlight and promote it. When as a culture and you quickly grab on to things from the outside versus taking pride in what is distinctly yours.
I think it's a little hard for me because working in government, I see so much promotion of the culture, so much support of Caymanian culture, and embedding that in so many of the different events and government initiatives.
But that's a very, very new thing, Kathy. Because I got elected 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And that focus was not there. well, remember now, I had the 12-year absence, but my first time getting elected was 2000.
Okay.
Right? And I can remember a time where, yeah, we had Pirates Week, we had this, we had that, but a lot of other things got lost. I can remember a time, the shamrock plant, let me use an example, when that blooms yellow, one of the most beautiful plants there is, in my opinion, on earth. There was a time in Cayman where all we did was destroy them systematically if we were clearing to build our houses, and we then went down to nurseries and bought foreign imported plants. We did that. Like, that is not something that I'm just making. That's what we did. People may say, well, how? Yeah, your indigenous flora and fauna, at least the ones that are now indigenous to you, that's been here for a couple hundred years, and that's another way that you celebrate who you are. No, it's not just bush. It is our beautiful plants.
Yes.
If you know how many tourists come here and look on and see that and see our poinciana and see those differing plants and say, wow, look at how beautiful. We feel like we're in paradise. But for a long time, we just pushed that stuff down and replaced it, right? Then the dark group came along and started to actually replant them. And then all of a sudden, people were like, oh, they are very beautiful. We have had a lot of cultural shifts just in my short lifetime. And you are right. CIG, as an entity, has really started and ensured that we do a much better job. That at varying events, we bring folk singers, we bring dances, we bring a lot of things, because people recognize, man, if we continue down the road we're on, we are truly going to lose so much of who we are. Absolutely. And what we are. And so systematically, that's an important part of this budget. But we also need to build an efficient and effective public service. And I believe that this budget underpins and supports us ensuring that the vision of the Deputy Governor and what should be the vision of all Caymanians is to have a world-class civil service is supported. But of course, that all has to be cemented by rule of law, a well-governed, transparent country where public safety and ensuring that we have a predictable legal infrastructure is how we built our economy. That's why financial services is here, right? And it's so important to our economy.
It's probably the strongest part of our economy.
So broadly speaking, that is what the budget is looking to do. And I believe that when you look at the priority areas and the spending areas, it will go a long way at ensuring that we achieve those outcomes. And that's critically important.
Okay, I want to turn now to the preview report. Now, with the NCFC government, it was a challenge, per se, for your government to come in and have to deal with a preview report, and you've been able to turn it around, which I know when I had you in on June 5th, I had asked the question, can we get out of these projections? Is this doable? And you had said then, yes, it is. And I had one eyebrow raised, and here you are. So as you've presented, what you have shown is coming out of what that preview report showed. So just to give people a bit of a background there, that pre-election economic and financial update report earlier this year projected operating deficits of about 26 million in 2025 and 44 million in 2026. It also warned that government would be breaching two of the principles of responsible financial management by not meeting the operating surplus or 90-day cash reserve tests unless a deliberate action was taken. So what are the key decisions in this budget that move us from those projected deficits to the operating surpluses now forecast?
Well, Kathy, let me begin by saying that even from the time I went to Finance Committee in September and in the preview to the budget, when we presented our strategic policy statement, at the time I was already projecting a surplus for 2025. So the deliberate actions that we took was we implemented a soft hiring freeze. We also encouraged all ministries and then to reduce budgets in areas that were areas of spend that you didn't have to. So, for example, in a number of areas where we've had, things like official travel, etc., we encouraged all ministries to limit that as best as possible. Still, look, the work of government still has to happen.
Yeah.
Right? You can't stop. Right? Government is a live, working entity that has to be there to support the country. But the combination of those measures got us to the point that we're now looking to have a surplus for this year. So let me ensure that everybody understands what happens, right? The budget for 2024 and 2025 was passed. That appropriation gave authority to spend up to a certain amount. Underpinning that authority were certain decisions that could be made, for example, hiring new people. And so with the preview is a product of the Minister of Finance going out to all ministries and saying, what are your projections? The Minister of Finance don't sit there at the center and sit in a dark, smoky room and just come up with a document and come up with these numbers. They go to every single ministry and say, what are your activities? What are your projections? They then stress test them and challenge them if they think there are areas that perhaps they're either too conservative. So, for example, when they go to a ministry and the ministry is saying, we think our revenues in a specific area, so immigration or revenues in the Ministry of Commerce, if they look off, they then challenge them and say, well, why is that, right? Tell us why, and ensure that their internal revenue forecasting unit is heavily involved in that process to ensure that those numbers look creditable. You don't want them wild overstated, but at the same time, you don't want them so understated that you just look at it and say, well, we know from history and where the economy is at. And then, of course, you have the Economic Statistics Office giving input as well. So you have that on the revenue bit. Then on the expenditure side, they then also report back, well, we're planning to hire 10 new people and we're planning to do this, and this. And so that then becomes the expenditure target for every single ministry. You accumulate those. That's how you get your report. That's how you get an overall core government, and SAGCs is separate, but that's how you get your core government forecasts, right? And so when we, after the elections and seeing the makeup of those forecasts is what led to a data-driven decision, right? I don't believe in making decisions just off the cuff, right? And so we looked at the data, and in looking at the data, my suggestion to the cabinet was, look, if we are going to avoid and avert where we're heading, here are some of the decisions, the conscious decisions we have to take. Now, the second part of your question, how are we now projecting surpluses for 26 and 27? Whilst we put a soft freeze in place for 25, there were and are areas that we know we do need additional public servants to service a growing population. Let's be clear, we're approaching 90,000 people. The public has to understand that the more human beings we have in Cayman demands more service delivery.
Yes.
Now how we interface technology and use technology is a separate conversation, but an equally important conversation, because we can use technology much better in the Cayman Islands government as we deliver services. But let's park that just right there for a second. So you have to have greater service delivery to a growing population. And so we knew that there would have to be some loosening of the hiring freeze, for example. We also know that there are other areas that are critically important to the country. We know we need a third high school. Capital, yes, but eventually once it comes on stream, there's an operating expenditure piece of it. We know we need additional classrooms in various primary schools across our system. We were in the middle of the Cayman Bragg High School project, which has to come on stream, God's willing, next year, and there'll be an operating expenditure piece to it, right? It'll be offset somewhat by the old plant, but it is a much bigger facility as well, more efficient, but much bigger facility. So there'll be a net uptick of operating costs. So knowing all that and looking at what is a conservative but realistical expenditure envelope, I then went to the cabinet and my caucus and my caucus rather and said, look, here's where we're at. We have to increase revenue. Couple that with the fact that we've not had any material revenue package for about a decade and a half, tells you what the decision has to be. You can't have a population that continues to grow. You can't then overlay that with additional public expenditures. And I'll give you a couple. For every 1% of COLA, for every 1%, right, we were at 492 million before the last COLA. 10%, 49 million. 1%, 4.9 million just in core government civil servants at that time. For every 1%, you need to find $4.9 million more of revenue, because that's $4.9 million more expenditure. When you implement free lunch programs, and those are now north of $10 million. I'm not saying whether either of those policy positions are right or wrong. I'm just giving you examples of policy decisions that you take that have a hugely important impact on expenditures. Mm-hmm. And so we've had those sort of decisions being taken over the last decade, but no additional material revenues coming in. So it's like you have in your small business and you take on more and more staff, and you give staff salary increases, and the cost of expenses are going up, and you make the decisions to expend monies in areas that you didn't before, but you don't grow your revenue base. Mm-hmm. If you do that, you naturally will get to the point where you operate at a loss.
Right.
And so that's why we took the decision that it was time to implement new revenue measures. Again, we're not kicking the can down the road, mm-hmm. Data-driven decisions.
And I think it's quite normal to have new revenue measures for sure. And with the previous government, the same thing was introduced. Not all did they manage to implement and meet, but some of them were there. You guys came along on the heels of that and have also, as we're learning, we've learned with this new budget, there's been so many of new revenue measures introduced, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the show. I want to remind people that we can take your calls and questions if you do have them now. We are opening the phone lines. So the numbers to call are 1-800-534-8255, 949-8990, or you can WhatsApp us at 925-3261. Please keep your questions strictly for the budget, because that is our topic of discussion this morning. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This holiday season, let Kirk Market do the roasting so you can do the hosting. Visit in-store or shop online and order your traditional family feast, complete with classic roasted turkey and ham, all the tasty sides and trimmings. Let the chefs at Kirk Market be your holiday helpers so you can spend less time in the kitchen. Order online at kirkmarket.ky or visit in-store today. And don't forget to visit the florist at Kirk Market to find the perfect centerpiece for your table. There's no place like Kirk Market for the holidays.
Yo, you finished your Christmas shopping yet?
Not even close enough. But I passed by Automotive Art last weekend. Bro, that place is a man's playground.
Facts. I went in for tires and ended up dreaming about new rims. They say containers keep coming in too. Fresh wheels landing every week, bro.
True. And you hear they stocking those wet sounds marine stereos, small to full systems? Imagine that on the boat next Sunday.
Boy, plus Fizzle Racing parts for the Wave Runners. I gonna finally outrun yours. This Christmas, head to Automotive Art for the gifts men really want. Rims, tires, batteries, performance parts, and the island's newest marine audio systems. And for the big gift, get 15% off 14-foot boats, complete with trailer, bimini top, and engine. Only $10,595 out the door. See? Christmas song. Automotive Art, Shedden Road.
The Lions Club of Grand Cayman is proud to continue to serve our island community. The club continues to host successful community projects like the Prostate and Colon Cancer Awareness Campaign, free site screening in schools, spelling bee, swim meets, and their community pantry. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman looks forward to continuing their service for many years to come. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman, where there's a need, there's a lion, serving the community for over 50 years.
At Mise en Place & Co., it's more than food. It's tradition rising from the bake shop. It's community coming together at the Barista Cafe. It's time back for the things you love with Boxed. It's knowing they'll eat well because of Yum. It's memories being made with Mise en Place events, and it's a moment shared over a slice of Gino's pizza. Because everything we make, from our kitchens to your table, is made right here in Cayman. Explore Mise en Place & Co.'s family of brands at miseenplace.ky.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and we are unpacking the 2026-2027 budget. And in studio with me, I have the Honorable Rolston Anglin, Minister for Finance and Economic Development. And I got one more question in regards to the preview.
Sure.
And then we're going to go into this budget, the fee increases. So one of the preview's warnings was that earlier budgets had relied also on some new legislation and revenue measures that were then delayed or not implemented, contributing to the deficits. The 2026-2027 budget calls for several changes in legislation. So how does government ensure the same thing doesn't happen? And I remember seeing in the plan and estimates, I believe it was, so many different changes in legislation that will be happening, will be coming forth.
So how you do it is you simply implement your revenue measures. We only had one that required us going to Parliament, and we passed that last week. So that's the increase in stamp duty for transactions over $2 million or transfers in landholding companies that exceed $2 million. We passed that legislation. That one required me going through cabinet with a regulation that then got placed on the table of the House for negative resolution, i.e. unless the House got up and rejected it, it becomes law. So that was done on Friday. And then the 10% for landholding companies was open for debate because that was a bill, and that was also passed. Everything else are done via regulations. And so because all of the primary legislation allow government to change the fees in regulations, we do that via cabinet. And so we will have all of our revenue measures in place to ensure that we kick off the vast majority for 1 January. I think there's only about 1 or 2 small items in immigration, and a lot of them we're not raising much money for, right? A lot of them are these things where a processing fee was recognized to have been decades old. And so we've said, okay, well, if the fee for processing the applications is less than the cost that it takes government to process the application, well, then let's bump it up slightly. And those have all gone up in very, very immaterial amounts. And we can go, I think we have another question on that later.
Yes.
So I'll go into that. But things like the annual license fees for banks and trust licenses, annual operating license fees for accounting firms, for law firms, the fund annual or FAR filing fee, the exempted limited partnership service provider fees, all of those are done via regulation and are already being processed by the cabinet. Now, there's one revenue measure that is not taking root until 1 January 2027, which is the registration and annual company fees. The reason for that is typically the large service providers, because a lot of them have so many clients, they start their billing process in the summer, late summer into the autumn. And so we knew from history that because a lot of them had already billed their clients, coming along in a budget cycle in November and then saying, ta-da, we're increasing these fees, typically doesn't go down well in the industry. And it really, really is clumsy. And so we agreed that wouldn't come into force until 1 January 2027. And that's part of the reason there was a differential in the projected revenues between 26 and 27. And also that contributes to 27 having a higher projected surplus, because we know there's this new revenue measure that comes on stream on 1 January 2027. And so again, listening, understanding our industry, and ensuring we're doing how to best implement these fees is critically important as well.
Okay. Well, so this budget, it leans heavily on the new and increased fees in financial services, legal and accounting firms, immigration, high-value property transactions, as we just mentioned, and non-Caymanian vehicle and driver licensing. So how confident with those kind of main focuses on where we're going to get our new revenue measures from, how confident are you that the additional forecast of roughly 172 million over the 2 years will be achieved?
I'm very confident. I'm very confident because our economy is still strong. Our economy is still growing. I'm very confident because we've consulted. And so we've gone to various stakeholders. Kathy, let me be clear. There's very few industries that you go to and you say, we're going to raise additional revenues, that put their hand up and say, yay, we will do this gleefully. But the fact is, we've been very targeted and very specific. Let me give you a classic example, right?
Before you go into the example there, and as you said, you did consult. And so I did ask some associations or nonprofits, did the government consult with you with this budget? And I understand some of the talks were already happening from 2024 per se, right, to now. So, but when it comes to, I guess, the smaller associations, like it could be, for example, Chamber of Commerce, CETA, Small Business Association, people like that, not just the bigger kind of pillars of our industry, but even the smaller sectors of our industry, were you able to consult with them?
Well, we consulted where people were going to be impacted. If you look through this budget truthfully, okay? Because, listen, I have all my facts here, and I want anyone to tell me where we are going to have any material impact on small businesses or the average man or woman on the street.
Okay.
I will quickly relent because I have every single revenue measure.
Okay.
Right? We consulted in the areas that we were going to tax, that we were going to put fees on. Right? I wasn't going to. Why were we going to come to a sector of the economy and say, let's consult, when there are no fees coming to your area? And because they're targeted and specific, there isn't going to be any bleeding into the local economy. When a fund annual return fee is increased, that's a hedge fund that's registered out of New York. How does that impact the average Caymanian? They are paying for us to be able to service that industry. They're paying because yes, the industry is important, but look at all of the initiatives and how much SEMA has grown. The fact is, and I said this during Finance Committee, and the ministry is committed to doing this, we are going to come to the country and give our view on return on investment of the two industries. I'm a CPA, and I come from the accounting profession, and so they're from the financial services industry. Is the financial industry hugely important to Cayman? Yes.
Yes.
We're going to keep it competitive. We're cutting edge. We are well ahead of the curve. And the thing that Caymanians have to understand is, take the average, again, let's go back to the investment manager who may have 15 funds, hedge funds registered in Cayman. A $300 increase in fund annual return filing fees, when each of your funds, you're raising capital in the hundreds of millions of dollars, because that's what makes it a viable hedge fund, is immaterial. What they're buying a number of things. One, they're buying the number one fund registration jurisdiction. Now, can we become cocky and confident to the point where we think no one can take the business away? No. But at the same time, we need to know our place in the industry and what could potentially cause someone to say, okay, I might deregister and go to another jurisdiction. We also are not on any grey list or threats for grey list right now, which not everyone can say. Because I hear people, and I'm not going to name any of our sister OTs. I'm going to throw anybody under the bus, but I hear Caymanians comparing us to other OTs, and that's, yes, they're open for business. But being open for business doesn't mean that the good business are going to go there in the droves that it comes to Cayman. And so we have really developed an efficient machine and funds, for example, that have put us in a pole position that allow us now to be able to look and say, okay, what do we need to extract from that sector to justify its existence and the regulation and the regulatory drain that it has, because it costs us huge amounts of money at SEMA. And so the point I was going to make is, one of the things we're going to be looking at is the contribution to government revenue, contribution to the economy, cost to government and the economy. And we're going to do that across tourism, financial services, and the development sectors, so that the country can actually start looking realistically at our industries. Because you can't just look at how much it produces for government. Because it would be, Kathy, again, let's go back to your small business. Let's just say that $1 million small business that we were talking about that you had a client in there that you were deriving revenues of $100,000 from. But the cost of your staff to service that particular client was $90,000. You really only make a net $10,000 off that client. You may have had another client that you were making $50,000 from within your mix of your client mix. But when you costed it out between staff, overhead, etc., when you fully costed out the cost of that client for you, it was only costing you $20,000. Now, the reality is very rarely will you have that type of disparity, but it is possible. And the point I'm making is, we can't just look at headline numbers. We got to be data driven in Cayman.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fully analyzing the data and looking holistically. It's hugely important for us, so that because honestly, I think sometimes we understate the value of tourism to this country. I think we look at headline numbers and say, well, financial services contributes X. What we don't look is at the carrying cost of all the people that are here to service that industry. We don't look at what's the cost to SEMA. In other words, we're not doing true cost accounting versus what tourism means to the country. And I think the country needs to really get now, there's no science to that. You're not going to get that down to the cent. But we do have the capacity to give the country, in a material sense, here's the true value of all of our sectors of our economy, so that we're very clear about how Cayman really, really is driven economically.
So I'm glad that you mentioned a couple of things there about the financial industries and the threat of perhaps moving to other jurisdictions, because this did happen in Cayman and between like 2018 to 2020. So that was pretty much, I want to say, the last years that we saw more of a significant increase in the financial services sector. And that was due to the introduction of the Economic Substance Law and the Private Funds Act. So we've seen that when Cayman significantly increases fees in financial services, we risk losing registrations and incorporations to competing jurisdictions such as Bermuda. And, they're right there, right beside us. So what assurance, if any, that you can give that Cayman will not repeat that experience? What if there was a slowdown in the sector because we are heavily relying on the financial services industry for revenue?
So we're heavily reliant, but the Premier and the team and the Minister of Financial Services and SEMA are doing a great job at supporting the private sector, right? The mission that was just undertaken by the Premier to New Delhi and to Mumbai, India, which everybody knows is going to be a new frontier, right, in terms of growth. That's critical travel. You can't just expect the private sector to be there. People want to hear from the government and ensure that the regulatory framework and environment that they're going to be quote-unquote investing in is solid, it's sound, and it's good people that's at the helm running it, know what they're doing. And so government is doing what it needs to do to diversify from a geographic standpoint, but we're also ensuring that new products are being supported, that we're rolling out new products and we're in new areas. So, for example, the work that the Premier is also doing in regards to our qualification around the North America insurance licensing and regime, and ensuring that we clearly are, again, in a position that the industry can look on and say, wow, Cayman is ticking every single box that we need to tick. So I feel very, very confident about our budget, to be honest. I wouldn't have stood up and said to the public of this country who elected me on the 30th of April, here is where we should be heading, if I didn't have full confidence in it. And so I feel very confident that in God's willing, in 24 months' time, just as we did in 2010, when a lot of these same people, Kathy, these same people were pronouncing the death of financial services, and that budget is the budget this country has been built on for the last 15 years. That's why we haven't had any new revenue measures, because we were bold enough but strategic enough to understand the areas that you can extract small fees on large volumes of service lines, right? So a small fee, for example, in fund annual returns, because we have so many products to spread that over, because you're talking about thousands of registrants. So you can then only introduce $150, $200, a number that's immaterial to their business. And you won't have any flight of loss of business. And therefore, when you multiply it over the number of registrants we have, that cost is bearable and much more easy to manage. So again, we got to be about data, right? You can't go and have 10 registrants and say, well, we want 100,000 from each of you. And they look on and say, yeah, that's a heck of a lot, too much. That's too much for us.
It can't be an arbitrary figure, yeah.
Right? And it has to be strategic. It has to be in areas that we feel confident.
With the reliance that government has on revenue measures that we're hoping to bring in from financial services sector alone, should we do more, should the government do more to help grow the financial services industry if it is one of the main sources of public funding?
Yes, it should, and we are.
How so?
And so government is increasing, is continuing to invest in Cayman Finance. That's a private entity. Government funds Cayman Finance, right? That isn't our marketing.
Right.
That's a private sector entity that government funds. We also are committed to the growth in CIMA. The provision of the regulatory framework to keep us off grey lists is a huge investment.
Yeah.
A lot of people downplay the funding of CIMA and say, oh, well, you have to do it. Yeah, we have to do it. But guess what? We don't go to every single partner in an accounting or a law firm or every single managing director in a directorship shop and say, oh, by the way, here's how much you should be contributing to fund CIMA, right? So that, again, that consultation around areas that we extract fees to ensure CIMA is a first-rate regulator is critically important. And so having that capacity to allow CIMA to grow to the levels that it needs to grow to regulate this very important industry is a huge investment that the country is making. But let me say the other thing, Kathy, that has been underreported, right? And we in government have not shouted it from the mountaintop, the proverbial mountaintops enough. The vast majority of our fees have been fees that were recommended by industry. The vast majority were industry driven, where industry said, listen, here's an area that you haven't touched in forever. This would be an area to extract. So we had that back and forth where various persons in the industry gave us feedback, and some of it we took, some of it we said, well, we're not so sure if we can be that aggressive, right? But for example, there are people who believe that we've still gone too lightly on the annual license fees for banks. Some people believe we should have gone up higher.
Well, I understand that the banking industry is an industry that was heavily consulted, and again, that's coming from periods of consultation going a few years back. So I understand where they're coming from. I missed our commercial break, so I'm hoping that we can marry that commercial break closer to 9 a.m., so I'm not going to stop right now. I'm letting Susan know that as I say this, because I just want to get through this part of our conversation as well. So in regards to these new revenue measures, I know you said that that's not going to be necessarily felt. These aren't your exact words, okay? So you can correct me. But it's not necessarily going to be felt amongst the people, and I personally very much disagree with that.
Okay.
I believe that, and this is not just coming from me, it's also coming from pretty much everybody I've spoken to about the budget, that it will directly impact everybody living here, because when the fees increase for all the businesses, it's somehow going to get passed down to a consumer.
Okay,
right?
So let's stop right there.
Okay.
And I'm going to go through every single fee. I'm going to go through every single fee. And then I want you to tell me how it's going to get passed on to a consumer.
Not every single fee, because time.
Oh, well, no, but that's a very important point that you made. You said that you personally disagree with everybody you've spoken to.
Yes.
And the problem at Cayman is, we continually don't appreciate how international finance is a very cocooned industry. It's not felt by everybody. So let's start with our insurance fee increases. $700,000. Exempt trade and business license fees. $1.17 million. They don't trade in the local. None of these trade in our local economy. The annual operational license for accounting and law firms. How many Caymanians go and use PwC? PwC doesn't make its money off local businesses.
Right.
EY does not make its money off local businesses. They make their money because of financial services. They make their money off local audit sign-off and auditing hedge funds, not in the local economy. And I'm going with the big areas now of the budget, right? Because you said we have to be quick. Fund annual FAR fees. No impact on the local Caymanian. Special economic zone trade certificates. No impact on local Caymanians. Registration and company licenses fees. Where's the average Caymanian there? Practicing certificate for in-house counsel and large law firms, and us bringing overseas lawyers on board and who have never had to pay a license fee. How many Caymanians use Maples, Walkers, Morant, Appleby, Ogier? How many average Caymanian, even small businesses typically use much smaller law firms who we have actually exempted from all the fees?
I agree with that. But that's not just those fees. Where there's also the work permit fees.
Okay, let's get to work
permit. There's increased work permit related fees.
Okay, let's get to that though, because that's been a huge misconception.
Okay.
Let's dive into that one.
So let us do that after the 9 a.m. headline news.
Okay.
I know you're ready to hit that, and I'm ready to hit it too, but because I missed that earlier commercial break, I want to make sure we hit that commercial break now when we hit the 9 a.m. headline news, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
We have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center.
Specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
This holiday season, let Kirk Market do the roasting so you can do the hosting. Visit in-store or shop online and order your traditional family feast, complete with classic roasted turkey and ham, all the tasty sides and trimmings. Let the chefs at Kirk Market be your holiday helpers so you can spend less time in the kitchen. Order online at kirkmarket.ky or visit in-store today. And don't forget to visit the florist at Kirk Market to find the perfect centerpiece for your table. There's no place like Kirk Market for the holidays.
Cayman, let's talk about your internet and phone service. OFREC has published a draft proposal for new consumer protection regulations, and we want your feedback. The draft regulations propose new rules to modernize the sector, including proposals to limit back billing to 3 months, introduce a 5-day cooling off period for new contracts, and set mandatory timelines for resolving complaints. The draft also proposes extending these protections to small businesses for the first time. But these are just proposals. To ensure the final rules are practical and fair, we need to hear from you. All submissions on this consultation should be made in writing and must be received by 5 p.m. on January 8, 2026 at the latest. For more information, visit ofreg.ky/consultations or email consultations@ofreg.ky. OFREG, working toward a fair and reliable digital economy.
The RAM water tank sale is on through until the 17th of December. Take advantage of up to 25% off select tanks. Whether starting a car wash business or looking to save on your monthly water bill, RAM water tanks boast superior strength, made to withstand harsh conditions and impact resistance. Order your RAM water tank today. Call 925-3822. RAM water tanks, built to last a lifetime. Proceeds from the RAM water tank sale to support the Jamaica Relief Fund.
I'm April Cummings from Radio Cayman's newsroom. So for my family, Christmas is always a time for us to remember, to share, to laugh, tell stories, and to give thanks. My wish for you this holiday season is that you'll take the time to enjoy your loved ones and really focus on the spirit of love and Thanksgiving. Have a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year from my family to yours.
Covering Cayman Bright, Little Cayman, and Grand Cayman.
1 in a million. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines. Local, regional, international news.
The Headline News is brought to you by Kirk Market and Health Services Authority.
The Ministry of Agriculture gets $500,000 in the wake of a bird flu outbreak in West Bay. On December 10th, Cabinet approved the creation of a new operation expenditure, Avian Influenza Pilot Culling Program, with a budget of $500,000. This funding supports, quote, urgent disease control measures, including a pilot program to cull feral chickens within 500 meters of the affected area in West Bay. In international news, dramatic dash cam footage shows a couple killed in the Bondi Beach shooting tried to stop one of the alleged attackers by grabbing his gun. 69-year-old Boris Gernman and his 61-year-old wife, Sophia, courageously stepped in to try and protect others before being shot themselves. Video of the incident shows Mr. Gernman, who was retired, wrestling with one of the alleged gunmen and taking the weapon off him before they both fell into the road. Mr. Gernman then gets up and appears to hit the suspected attacker with the gun. The attacker is then thought to have another gun, which he used to kill the couple. And the BBC says it will defend a $5 billion lawsuit filed by U.S. President Donald Trump against the BBC over an edit of his January 6, 2021 speech in a Panorama documentary. Trump accused the broadcaster of defamation and of violating a trade practices law. The BBC apologized to Trump last month, but rejected his demands for compensation and disagreed there was a, quote, basis for a defamation claim. Those are your headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
As we celebrate the Christmas season, we thank you, our patients and partners, for your support. We wish you a blessed Christmas and peace, joy, and good health in the new year. From your friends and family at HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
Kirk Market's 12 Days of Gift Cards is back. Each day, 12 lucky customers will win a $100 Kirk Market gift card just for shopping at Kirk Market. Ho, ho, ho! You heard that right. Every day for 12 days with 12 lucky winners each day. Come in December 11th through the 24th and shop. You could win. And there's no minimum required. It's that easy. It's Kirk Market's 12 Days of Gift Cards. December 11th through the 24th. The countdown to Christmas is on at Kirk Market.
Yo, you finished your Christmas shopping yet?
Not even close enough. But I passed by Automotive Art last weekend. Bro, that place is a man's playground.
Facts. I went in for tires and ended up dreaming about new rims. They say containers keep coming in too. Fresh wheels landing every week, bro.
True. And you hear they stocking those wet sounds marine stereos, small to full systems. Imagine that on the boat next Sunday.
Boy, plus Fizzle Racing parts for the wave runners. I gonna finally outrun yours. This Christmas, head to Automotive Art for the gifts men really want. Rims, tires, batteries, performance parts, and the island's newest marine audio systems. And for the big gift, get 15% off 14-foot boats, complete with trailer, bimini top, and engine. Only $10,595 out the door. See? Christmas song. Automotive Art, Shedden Road.
If you have an objection to this marriage, speak now or forever hold your...
Don't do it, Tevin! I still love you. I have since the day we stole your mom's car and got matching dolphin tattoos.
Oh, Lordy. Janelle? From spring break 08?
Yes, it's me.
Janelle, you've got to move on.
We're like the wedding guest that doesn't ruin the ceremony. CG Britke. Good like that.
The Department of Agriculture advises the public of their new operating hours for the Grand Cayman Commercial Center, formerly known as the Sales Warehouse, and the Plant Nursery. Effective December 1st, 2025, the new hours are Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., Saturdays from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The facilities will be closed on Sundays and public holidays. The DOA thanks you for your continued support.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and we are talking about the 2026-2027 budget. We are unpacking some of the things inside that budget with the Minister for Finance and Economic Development. We have the Honourable Rolston Anglin in studio, and I had just asked the question. Now, he was giving us some of the new revenue measures when it comes to the financial industry, law industry, but we are now moving on to, I said, work permit related fees, because I guess how I posed the question was, I believe that this is absolutely going to impact the average person in Cayman. Everybody's going to be impacted by this new budget. The cost of living will increase because of the impact that businesses have on some new fees or increased fees that they have to pay. So that'll trickle down likely to the consumers. Mm-hmm. And then you said, oh, hold on, let's challenge that. So we're looking at the work permit fees right now.
Right. And we went through a number and we agreed that they are in international finance and don't impact our local Caymanians, right? But let's deal with work permits. So the area that I've heard a lot of focus on has been the standard work permit admin fee. Okay? So let me get the data, because there's nothing like speaking from the data. If the work permit fee is up to $2,100, which is the vast majority of fee level let me restate that. That is in that fee bracket where a work permit fee costs up to $2,100 is the vast majority of work permits that Caymanians, the average Caymanian, would acquire, i.e. domestic helper, still one of the biggest categories, right? And a large range of small businesses work permit fees, right? If you're in lawn and gardening, if you're in construction, etc., the vast majority of the actual work permit fee is less than $2,100, that admin fee goes from $100 to $150. $50 increase. If your fees are between $2,101 and $10,400, so that's the base work permit fee, the admin fee goes from $100 to $250. That now starts to get into a category where your average Caymanian isn't paying. The average Caymanian are not paying for their work permits for their workers more than $2,100, right? Then if it's $10,400 up to the third of $2,400, the fee goes from $100 to $500. That's where the biggest impact comes.
Yes.
But that's for the admin fee for the application. Again, where's that going to hit? Big businesses. And the big businesses in Cayman that pay those fees are not your Foster's Food Fair. They don't have much. They don't have people in those categories. The vast majority of their work permits are in the 0 to 2,100. The vast majority of their work permits are for lower end type of people. The vast majority of the high work permit fees are in financial services. And so those are going to be paid by your directorship shops, by your your corporate service providers, etc., who have hired professionals. And because those work permits are at that level, those admin fees go up by that amount. And so again, we've targeted it that the vast majority of where Caymanians actually operate get the very smallest hit, which is only $150. The minister responsible for labor and immigration was very, very clear with us in caucus. And we, of course, agreed that, look, let's stagger this. Let's don't do an overall, just one flat across the board increase in this admin fee, right? Then, if you now go to the other areas that we are increasing fees, dependent fees, new dependents, again, who pays that? The person who's on a work permit pay this new dependent fee. We believe that if you want to have the right to have a dependent in Cayman, you should pay a higher fee. Not only that, we've tagged that with another policy change, which is that age-old $3,500 a month, which for successive administrations over the last decade to have left that at that level, in my opinion, has been very irresponsible. That now goes up to you have to earn $6,000 to truly show you can support a dependent here in Cayman. But I digress. That was a immigration debate issue, not on, again, annual declaration filing fee for persons who hold permanent residency. That's a non-Caymanian fee. So again, your challenge was the vast majority of the work permit fees are going to impact the average Caymanian.
Yes.
I believe that we have been very, very focused that it won't impact the average Caymanian.
Okay. Now, my feedback in speaking to a few businesses, they're not small businesses and they're not the large firms. In my mind, I would describe them as medium, but as per what the DCI would say, it's a small, micro, medium. I'm not sure exactly what those numbers are, but they have about 100 employees. And just the work permit fee, the filing fee increases alone for them, it's from $100 to $500 now. So it's
hold on.
For them, what they have told me.
So let me push back. If you have 100 employees, that means you're a professional services firm.
They're not in the law, or it's a different service that they do. They do offer a service, and I'm not going to.
So hold on, and their so let's go back to the bands now, and their work permits are from 10,000 and above.
They were just under 10,000.
So if they're under 10,000, their increase doesn't go to 500; it goes to 250.
From what they have explained to me, their increase is up to 5. So I'm believing the business owner and what they've said to me.
Okay,
and I'm giving you an approximate number in what I think that they have in there. I didn't ask them for the exact number of employees.
So all I'm saying is I just gave you the bands. If their work permit fee goes from 2,001 to 10,400, the filing fee goes from 100 to 250. So that sounds like business owners are not paying attention. They need to actually read what we've produced.
Oh, they're paying attention.
But you just said to me their work permits are not above 10,400. If it's not above 10,400, it does not go to 500. I'm just giving you the fact.
I understand, and I'm going based on what the feedback to me has been from businesses and more medium-sized businesses. Okay. And people are very, very worried. So there's the minimum wage increase, right? And then there's these different new revenue measurements when they come to the work permit fees and the filing fees and other fees that are associated
well, it's the work
there.
Permit fees, it's the work permit filing fee, not the work permit fee, because we haven't touched their work permit fee.
Right, yes.
Let's be clear.
Yes.
It's
the
just
filing
fee.
And administration fees.
It's an admin fee. That's all it is.
We have a caller, so we're going to take that caller in a second. So based on what I'm saying here is that there has been tremendous feedback to me that everybody's going to be feeling it. They're feeling it. And so then their services are the services that they might provide to other firms are being cut a little bit because as the bigger firms, the accounting firms, for example, this is a very real scenario. One company that services an accounting firm. And that accounting firm has said, hey, we've been slapped with these new increases. Now we have to cut our contracts with you. So that directly impacts this more medium-sized business. That's a very simple example right there. So yes, that feedback is coming, and that is what I'm worried about when it comes to the cost of living and how the average Caymanian will, or resident here, because it's the Constitution calls to everybody in the Cayman Islands and how we're going to be living, right? Not just Caymanians, but everybody. It covers everybody here. I have to take the caller. The caller did come in, and then we did have a comment that came in through WhatsApp. So good morning. Thank you for calling The Buzz.
Yeah, good morning there, Kathy. Mario Eubanks here.
Hello.
And good morning to Mr. Rolston, the Finance Minister.
Good morning.
Yeah, just want to say I think you're doing a solid job, and thanks for taking the time to explain everything. I just have a question in regard to finance, but also how it impacts or the correlation between that and population growth, and what kind of economic analysis in terms of population will use to inform the budget preparation. For example, in the Caymanian Times newspaper on Friday, it talked about the population being 91,000 people. And I just wondered what kind of forecasting in terms of population growth has been done to inform this 2-year budget by the government, and whether if you can share any of that with the public, and whether there's any plans to do any kind of polling or referendum or discussions with Caymanians in terms of what is the carrying capacity of population for the country. Because obviously population growth, whether it's increasing or decreasing, will impact the funding of the budget, whether it's the funding the revenue for operational expenses or to help fund the payment of financing. So I just wanted to understand whether you had any thoughts on that, and we could share with the public about population growth and how that impacts the budget. Thank you very kindly.
Okay, Mario, thank you very much. That's a very good question. And yes, if you turn your attention to the budget document, you will see all of the assumptions that we've used. And so for right now, those growth projections are based largely on our GDP assumptions, and our gross domestic product assumptions drive a lot of other activities, right? They're underpinned by a lot of other activities. And so yes, we do have our projected growths in real GDP. In all of our budgeting, we've made the assumptions around our inflation rates, and we've stress tested those because we've used ranges of forecasted inflation in regards to what activities that would lead to. We've also looked at what is our assumed unemployment rates, and again, that was interrelated to what was broadly known at the time, because we had already started the consultative process around the new immigration law, and also what our current balance of payments are, and where the balance of payments projections would be. So excellent question, and yes, everything that was mentioned, our human capital development indicators, everything feeds into all of the assumptions. We also did two other things. One key additional piece of work as it related to revenue projections. We not only had feedback from the originating ministries, because a lot of times they understand their business, right? We then have the budget forecast unit, the revenue forecast unit in the Ministry of Finance. We also ensured that we brought on the ESO so that the ESO would give their predictive indicators, and we then took those three to ensure that any projection was truly stress test, and we feel confident with what those projections will produce. And as I said, everything that we have in this budget winds up in then the ultimate forecast for real GDP growth and consumer price index and inflation growths. So none of this is the Minister of Finance coming out and just saying, hey, this is what we kind of think. One of the things we were saying on the break, Kathy, is when you're having to do this, okay, this is not about, you lick the thumb and put it in the air and kind of just feel how much wind is blowing against it. You have to ensure that you're putting in the hard work that then has a complete economic package. So the budget is one thing, but the reason we produce all these documents in the annual plan and estimates is to show the public that we've actually also done the work to assess what we think the overall impact will be on the economy. Hence the reason when I can do these sort of presentations and assure my colleagues that, look, we have done the work in the Ministry of Finance and we feel very, very confident. And that's why I feel very good when I can have, members in the opposition and members such as Mr. Chris Saunders, who himself is a CPA like myself and understands finance intimately, understands economic intimately, and I can share the revenue projections and the assumptions. It's critically important, that entire process, because if this was just the government, if the budget could just be passed by the government and we pass it in cabinet and come and present it to the country and say, ta-da, that hasn't had a lot of stress test in terms of other persons' views. And so being able to run through finance committee, being able to have what is very, very important sideline conversations and conversations one-on-one, I don't believe that as Minister of Finance, I should not be speaking directly to people who are in Parliament as well, not just private sector, but in Parliament as well, who I know and I feel confident has a lot of knowledge in a subject area, right? I can remember back in the day, if anything was going to be happening in infrastructure-wise, I spoke to Mr. Arden McLean because he was a person that understood and had intimate knowledge of infrastructure type matters. When it comes to things like finance, I believe that Mr. Chris Saunders, the member for Borden Down West, has huge knowledge and a lot to offer when it comes to matters of finance. And so when I'm able to have these sorts of conversations and share, because remember, these are public documents.
Yeah.
This is a public document. This is the document that every member of the public can go online and find on the Ministry of Finance's website. And so when we're able to get to that stage where I'm able to say, okay, this is what we're coming with. This is what it looks like. Here's all the assumptions we've made. And people like him still vote for the budget. That gives me a lot of confidence that we have a solid set of projections and a very solid annual plan and estimates. And I think it's going to be hugely positive for Cayman. After all, it is about delivery. We got to deliver services that are critically important to our community. As I said to you on one of the breaks, Kathy, I've lived through the 2001 budget storm. That was tough times. 2010 was even worse. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, we went back and forth with FCU around 5 to 6 times before we finally got that budget approved, because we were coming out of the financial meltdown, financial crisis, and we were non-compliant with a large range of key indicators, including deficits. We were producing deficits at the time. And I can remember a lot of these same concerns, and I can remember people saying to me at the time, I wasn't Minister of Finance, but obviously I was the person in that cabinet that had a finance background.
Right.
And I can remember people saying to me, work permit fees are going from $5,000 to $30,000, and they were huge increases that the private sector agreed with at the time, that now produces us and lands us at this point where the government has gone from $600 million to projecting out a $1.3 billion budget. We have not had a material revenue measure package for a decade in the country. And I feel that the work that the minister has put in, the assumptions that we've made, are going to prove out to be hugely positive for our economy, hugely positive for the country.
Are any of those new revenue measures, some that we talked about, a lot that we didn't, are any of them being re-examined and possibly removed? Like, for example, the vehicle license and driver license fees?
No.
Really? We're not going to re-examine? What about the liquor license ones? I've been hearing, this is why I ask.
Okay, so let's examine the liquor license one. The liquor license one is when we should be increasing more.
Why? Reasoning.
How many single items, beer, wine, alcohol, hard liquor, how many single items do you think Jake Scott sells per year? Single bottles of beer, single bottles of wine, single bottles of alcohol. Nothing else. Let's leave it at just
millions of them.
Millions of them.
Yes,
Okay,
but that's Jake Scott, which is a big company. So you have smaller liquor distribution companies here as well. I'm going to throw out Reflections being one.
Okay, and how many do they distribute per year?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't ask them that question.
Well, I can tell you.
But they're a lot smaller than your bigger distributors here.
Okay, but a lot smaller still doesn't mean you're small. A lot smaller still doesn't mean you're small.
Doesn't mean you're big either.
Right, but 24 bottles of beer or cans of beer in a case. Some wine is 12. Agreed? Let's just play pretend. Let's play pretend, Kathy. The fee has gone from $4,800 to $25,000. 25,000, let's do it right on air, minus 4,800. That's a $20,200 increase. You think that there's a world in which you can have that license and have any volume of business where you're not selling? So 24 cases of beer, 24, right? So just remember the 20,200, 24.
Yeah, and it was roughly around 20 grand that it was going up, yeah.
Right. So let's just say 24 cases of beer. Let's say that you're selling, what do you think you're going to sell to make your business work? At least how many cases of beer do you think you would need to sell? Because certainly you need 100.
Why are you throwing math at me? You can't throw math at me. You're the math guy. You're the numbers
certainly
guy.
Certainly it's not 1,000 cases.
No, yes.
We know it's more, right? Let's mean you play this. We're just going to say, you know what? Man, it's just 1,000 cases. That's 24,000 for the month. That's just beer. Times 12. 288,000. That's just if you sell 1,000. But you know you're selling way more than 1,000. That's just beer.
Right.
20,200 divided by 288,000.
We're calculating on air for those who are wondering what's going on here, yes.
Yeah. Just on 1,000 cases. And you haven't sold any wine, you haven't sold any liquor. Just if you just sold a little 1,000 cases of beer, but you know you're selling a lot more. That's 7 cents. But we know it's way more. We know you're selling way more. The fact is, everybody likes to use this sticker shock without being truthful to the public and saying, here's how much this is going to be spread over. So the numbers that have come in is based on imports. And we know that they're selling several million.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happens in the Minister of Finance's mind. 20,200, and you divide that by a million units of sales, less than 2 cents.
Okay, so that's how you've justified it per...
For every million that you sell,
Mm-hmm.
for every million units of anything, whether it's beer, whether it's wine, whether it's liquor, right? Because Cayman consumes not just the local population. Now remember, we have a huge visitor population.
Right.
A lot of people forget that, because a lot of people, they look on and they say, wow, how can we have that amount of liquor consumed by such a small country? But the fact is we have several 100,000 persons who visit every year.
Yes.
And as hotel guests, condo guests, they consume as well. So for every million units you sell, there's less than 2 cents impact per unit.
Okay. Okay, I like how you broke down those numbers.
So,
we only got a couple minutes left, so I'm trying to keep cognizant of the time.
Oh, okay,
I have a couple questions to ask you.
But you
I
get
appreciate
that point.
I do get it. I absolutely get it.
Okay.
Maybe one day I'll have a round table with the businesses and see what they got to say.
Well,
Not even one day. That's in the works.
What they should do though is, and if they're going to have the round table, make sure that they give you their import list to show you what they're importing, because I can tell you what they're importing is what they're selling. Yeah, they have some inventory, but you're importing it to sell it.
Absolutely. Well, I would hope so. So I'm cognizant of the time. I might go a few minutes over here. For 2026, we also projected operating surplus to be, I'm saying, only 11 million on a budget of roughly 1.25 billion. That's less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked this in my solo budget discussion. Mm-hmm. Are we dangerously close to an operating deficit given the surplus relies heavily on new revenue measures?
Listen, I made this point abundantly clear during the presentation. And I will be very clear here. I understand clearly that we have to manage responsibly. Note that it goes up to 37 million by the next year.
Yes.
In large measure because of one revenue measure that's delayed implementation until 1st January 2027. Right?
Okay.
What I've said to the country, I said it during the budget debate, the presentation, and I've said it everywhere I go to public servants and all who hear me. Look, I don't come to this table in this position to not be truthful. So we've truthfully budgeted and we've put the expenditure envelopes the way that they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have been truthful about the fact that yes, we are not, quote unquote, out of the proverbial woods, and so we have to continue to have fiscal restraint, and we have to be very, very careful. I'm confident that we will meet or exceed these targets. I think there's a few areas of budgeting that we still are very conservative in revenue forecasting. However, because I believe that there must be a collaborative approach, I'm not going to put myself, the ministry, or any public agency in a position where if Kathy Miller as reporter calls them up and says, your projections on revenue, are they materially different than the Minister of Finances? And they can answer yes. So we do have in a few agencies in CIG that are very, very conservative with how they project revenue. There's a back and forth. We agree a number because I have to ensure that this budget can't have any public officer saying, man, their projections are very different than mine, because it'll undermine the credibility.
Yes.
Now, the finance ministry could be right, They could be right, but it could undermine the credibility. So I feel very confident in the budget. I feel very confident that 26 and 27 are going to be good years for Cayman. Let's not forget, this also incorporates expenditure increases. And so, as Cabinet, we are acutely aware that we have to be very mindful of the fact that it's $11 million projected. And so in 2026, we are going to monitor, as you always would, but we're going to be extra diligent and vigilant in our monitoring process to ensure that we land the budget in surplus, right?
Okay.
One of the key indicators are going to be after Q1. As we know, the country makes the vast majority of its revenue in the first quarter.
Right.
Because all financial services revenues are due by March 31st. It's the high tourist season. So we make the most money on room, tax, etc.
Right.
So we are going to know at the end of very early in mid-April, I'm going to be able to be in a position to have a very clear view of what 2026 is going to look like.
Okay.
And so that's going to inform any policy changes that we may or may not have to implement. Because remember, this is to your point. Suppose I was projecting $80 million in surplus. That still doesn't mean you don't have to be vigilant, because something can happen. Things can happen, right?
Because $172 million over 2 years is the new revenue measures that we're relying on, right? So we have to be, as you said, extremely vigilant, extremely careful on monitoring exactly what we're doing here.
We have to monitor.
I have to go on to the final question here, and then I want to read a couple of comments that came in, whether you can answer them or not. But the final question here, because it would be wrong for me not to ask. Now, government plans to borrow up to, or allowed up to $236 million over the 2026-2027 budget. That's the borrowing. So given how government has been stressing the fiscal prudence and considering how close Cayman was previously to breaching the fiscal rules, how is that borrowing of $236 million justified?
So that's justified in a number of ways. One, if we don't invest, so those borrowings underpin key investments for us, and it's affordable. So it's like a business owner who has a solid business, and that business owner looks on and says, for me to get to the next level, I do need to go out and invest in certain capital, because that capital is now going to feed future growth. And so for us, it's all a package. That's why I said everything has been stress tested. The package is driven on the borrowing. The borrowing is affordable. That money isn't going to be spent on day one. It's not going to be spent in Q1. If we need to curtail, we'll curtail. But once we see the budget performing and the economy continuing to perform, then it's all affordable within the fiscal envelope that we've set for 24 months. And why is it responsible? It's responsible because we need east-west arterial. One of the key economic drivers for us is going to be building that new road. Critically important.
Very important.
We have a number of other agencies whose capital programs are such that we cannot go without making those investments. We have the monies to finish off the Cayman Bragg High School. Has to happen. Can't leave that school partially built. We have monies in there for the new track at the Truman Bodden Sports Complex. Anyone that goes up there, that track is torn up. It's torn up. We need to have.
And I remember when it was redone.
and I'm just giving you a broad flavor for the capital investments that we're making, right? Now, a number of those equity investments as well are going in to fund statutory authorities and government companies like Cayman Airways. Cayman Airways is a key economic tool for us. We need to fund those, put those monies in, tens of millions of dollars into Cayman Airways. So what I've looked at and worked assiduously with my colleagues was, we worked from the starting position, which was the wish list that all the ministers had, and we whittled that down to what we believe are the strategic priorities. It's all about data-driven decisions and decisions that are going to be producing services and facilities that are critically needed for a growing country and for our Caymanian people. None of this is extravagant spending or just going out and saying, oh, well, we just want to build this and build that. No, we looked very carefully, and we said, here are the capital plans that the country really, really needs in these 24 months. Because what would be government's other decision to say, oh, well, we're going to try and only spend what we make in a surplus. There's no country in the world that does that.
No, no, and
therefore,
we wouldn't.
Therefore, you have to borrow.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to sustain that.
Therefore, we have to borrow, and make sure that the borrowing repayments are responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say to you that one of the things that looking out, I want to get through, once we get through this budget and this budget performs the way that we are anticipating it to perform, the next budget has to be about fiscal stabilization long term. What do I mean by that? We need to ensure that we're putting in place a fiscal envelope that actually starts to produce meaningful savings for this country. Meaningful amounts going into a true general reserve fund, right? Right now we have the EPF, but that's a segregated fund for specific purposes, driven by a specific fee every time people travel in and out of Cayman. Then we have the infrastructure development fee. Again, a fund. Again, another very specific fund to fund infrastructure development partially in the country. What we don't have, given all the monies we're making as a country, is a real savings pot of general reserves. I want Cayman needs to be put on a trajectory to start to actually be able to save. Because look at this.
I'm glad you noted that, because I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, a young person saying that exact thing that you just mentioned.
It's my vision, the government's vision for the future. We need to, a decade goes so quickly. I was out of politics for a decade, 12 years to be exact. If we can from 28 onward, if we can have a decade where we're putting aside 10, 15, $20 million every year, 10 years, 20 years, we will then be able to have enough in reserves that we actually start to make creditable amount of revenues off our reserves that can then be used to fund a lot of our activities. That's where Cayman needs to get to. For a country that produces the level of wealth that we produce, that is where we need to get to, Kathy.
Yeah, I agreed. 100% agree.
And so that's the long-term vision of the NCFC, is to put us on that trajectory.
Okay.
Because if we can get there, that will be the biggest benefit that we can give future generations.
I want to say we'll be cruising. Hopefully we'll be cruising. I want to read a couple of the WhatsApp comments that did come in.
Sure.
Good morning. I like how Minister Anglin takes the time to explain things and the bottom line. I think it was unfortunate that the various governments hadn't been increasing many of these fees slightly over the years. So, of course, many of them will find it shocking now, and it affects how much more wealthy they want to be. There was another comment that came in saying, "Morning, Kathy. I noticed a lot of negative comments on CNS about the immigration changes. Some of these commentators are saying that the financial industry will start taking businesses to other jurisdictions. Can the minister comment on what the overall feedback was from the industry when the government liaised with them on the recent changes in law to both the increases in fees as well as immigration?" So you kind of touched on that, but...
Yeah, so good, great. First of all, the first commenter is absolutely right. That's why I have gone to great pains to remind the public that we have not increased fees systematically. And that's right. That's what happens when you leave fees alone and make government, the population of government grows, the cost of government grows, And then you wind up in 2025 where we're looking on and saying, we have provided critical necessary services, but we've not kept the fees up to afford them in a responsible way and safe, right? The last comment, very, very good comment. I thank the author for that, because it is the $1 million question. So let's break it down into two parts. The first part is that the vast majority of our fees were driven by the industry. Take the lawyer fees. This is the first time that we're going to have lawyers who are outside Cayman practicing Cayman law. A, called to the bar, to our local bar, and B, therefore pay the fee. So these are people who are already outside Cayman, hundreds of them. They already are in the Dubai, the London office of all of our international law firms, but are actually practicing Cayman law in those jurisdictions. So now they're going to be caught in our net. So already we are actually making outsourced work contribute locally, because SEMA has to regulate everything, right? Now, on the immigration side, everything that I've been told, everything that I've seen, is that in financial services especially, I have not been told or seen or heard of anything where anyone's looking on and saying, oh, well, we're not going to get access to the talent we need, therefore, guess what? We're going to go somewhere else. There's nothing in that Immigration Reform Act, and this is phase 1, and phase 2 won't include this either, where we don't feed our industries. Our industries are our lifeblood and the opportunity for the next Caymanian. So, and this is the balancing act, and this is the thing we have to always explain to our population and remind people. We are tightening up on a lot of things like sham marriages, etc., that we know, we know have been abused for a long time. We're tightening up on the carrying capacity of our country when it comes to dependents. We're tightening up on the abuses around dependents. One of the biggest tricks, a person who's coming near the end of their term limit, they then marry another non-Caymanian whose term limit expires 5 years from now, become a dependent on that, and then use the separation of family clause in the Constitution to be able to stay in Cayman and get beyond the term limit. So gone are the days. So marriages of convenience, our marriages weren't just about non-Caymanians marrying Caymanians. A lot of them are between non-Caymanians. So now the new law says, hold on, you can get married, but the term limit that you are going to be subjected to is the person with the less time in Cayman. It was a loophole. We are closing continuous loopholes in immigration. We're closing the loophole where you could just get 30 points by going out investing in real estate and do nothing meaningfully in Cayman to help build Cayman. Loopholes. I don't know of anything. And if you look at the cost-wise, again, we have not touched the actual work permits. If we look at the entire package, and I look at the growth in financial services, the growth in hedge funds, the growth in local audit sign-off, the windfall that local audit sign-off, $600+ million was the estimate that was pumped into this economy by that one policy position. Some lawyers still disagree. I don't personally, not because I'm an accountant, I just believe the numbers have justified the policy position. I have nothing against persons who stayed in my profession. I was the one who went away, who left to come into public service. I'm not now going to look back grudgingly and say, oh, well, let's take more than those firms can adequately afford. Here's the reality. All partners are making over 7 figures. A $500,000 increase spread over 15 partners, less than $50,000 a partner. I have to be extremely realistic about the cost of government. Nobody wants to pay more, but everybody wants. No, hold on. No wealthy person wants to pay more.
Nobody wants to pay more. Period.
I am going to focus on those who can best and able to afford. Here is where my job becomes one that I have to be completely honest to myself and the public of this country. As long as I can feel like I've protected small businesses and the average Caymanian from the impacts of revenue measures, those who are most able ought to revert to the Bible that so many of us tout and be thy brother's keeper. We ought to understand there is a price to pay for this little economic miracle, the safety, and all of the things that we so much enjoy in this country. And I think that in 24 months, God's willing, people are going to look back and say, you know what, my business grew. I mumbled and grumbled initially. But you know what? Cayman's better off. And I truly, truly believe our islands are going to be better off because of this budget, because we've been put on a stable financial footing and can have a base to grow from.
All right, we gotta wrap the show.
I know you have to wrap up.
I've been
I want people to listen very carefully to the messages of the Commissioner of Police, the Honorable Premier, and the Governor have issued recently.
Yes.
If you see something, call the authorities immediately. If you know of anything that's going on in our community, call the authorities and report it. We need to have this be a safe and enjoyable Christmas. But Kathy, this is not going to be my last appearance.
I know, because you've challenged me to. We're going to revisit some of the the beliefs we both have.
So here's a minimum. Here's our minimum that I would like us to agree on air publicly today. At a minimum, let's have a half-year check-in.
All right.
And then we're going to have a 1-year check-in.
All right, that sounds great to me.
So that we can now look. Because listen, if CIG, if the Ministry of Finance, if I, who has to represent government on this very important topic, doesn't get it quite right, we must pivot.
Yes.
I'm not against pivoting.
No, I know you're ready. I know you can pivot.
Okay. So we have to do what we have to do to make this all work for all of us.
Yes.
We're all in this together. And so I hope and pray that you have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you.
Wonderful holidays.
Thank you.
And that your listeners has the same and a healthy and prosperous 2026.
Absolutely. Wishing the same for them too. We have our last show of the year actually on Thursday, and the DG is going to be joining us then as well. So I'm having a pretty good final week here. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you had to reschedule, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time. A lot is going on. I've taken over 2 hours of your time today, so I'm going to kind of pop my own collar for that. But thank you for extending the time, and for our listeners and for the country to better understand what this budget is all about.
Thank you.
All right. It's a wrap for today. I'll be back with you guys on Thursday.
The Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market. Experience a world of choice. And Automotive Art Cayman. Your car, our passion. And by Dorman Day, celebrating 10 years of opening doors to brighter futures. Visit dormanday.ky.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by